Institutions are coming in. Now they own 3% of all the shares of this particular stock, and the retail investors are somewhat sleeping at the wheel. I am talking about the stock of Aduro Clean Technologies with the ticker symbol ADUR. If you're new to this channel, Aduro Clean Technologies is a very interesting investment opportunity, probably an opportunity that can create generational wealth, because Aduro has a solution to $1 trillion problems. Unless you've been living under the rock, you have heard that the world is swimming in plastic. The world produces 400 million tons of plastic every year, and this doesn't even include all the plastic that's been accumulated in the landfills. And less than 10% of all the plastic that's being produced is being recycled, because simply there are no existing technologies in commercial usage that can handle many different plastic types, especially contaminated plastic. And Aduro Clean Technologies developed a technology that can recycle pretty much the rest of the plastic that goes into the landfill. And it is a complete game changer, because the company has a market cap of about $350 million. Not too much revenues at this point, because the story is about commercializing the technology. And at first, smart retail was buying the stock. They were studying the technology, and they realized that the upside is enormous, because anybody that has a solution to $1 trillion problem has no business trading for $350 million valuation. But now what we are seeing, now that 13 Fs have been published, we can see that institutions are coming in to the name, and retail investors, some retail investors, are still making the same mistake that they have been making over the last few years, and I will get to this. But now we have institutions such as Empire Asset Management, Juana, UBS Group, Citadel Advisors, Two Sigma, Copperleaf Capital, Jane Street, JWM Advisors. This is a complete shift from what we have seen on the cap table for this company over the last few years. The biggest barrier was, of course, the market cap, because the institutions have to have a certain liquidity and certain market cap before they enter these positions. So now, even though Aduro hasn't reached the $500 million mark yet, institutions are already accumulating, and as I said at the beginning of this video, now they own about 3% of the company, and this is just the beginning. Now, the mistake that I see investors, especially retail investors, making right now is that they keep looking at this as, oh, this company has to reach a certain revenue level to justify the current valuation. This is a mistake, because if we look back when the company had a market cap of about $50 million a few years ago, the same mistake people were making. In order to justify the $50 million valuation, the company has to have X amount of revenues, X amount of profitability. And what happened? The stock went up almost 10x during that time, and none of the increases in revenue happened, none of the increases in profitability happened. Why? Because when you are dealing with a company that has a game-changing technology for a problem that's massive, none of that matters in the short term. Now, if you were in the business of selling ice cream, bicycles, cybersecurity, or anything that's already out there, yes, your valuation has to be justified by revenues and profits. Absolutely. But when you have a game-changing technology, when you have a solution, when you have a cure for cancer, none of that matters, because that cure and that solution on its own, once it is proven on a commercial scale, then it's game over. Then people will be able to project will be able to bet what the revenues will be in the future, how much of a market share a particular technology will grab, and then what kind of revenues can it generate. And that's why Aduro Clean Technologies is in a class of its own. Because if we think about the plastic problem, and less than 10% of plastic is being recycled, the 90% goes to the landfill, and somebody comes up with a solution to that problem like Aduro has done, what's the competition? There is no competition. Nobody is fighting over the 90% of plastic that goes into the landfill. Nobody. So the field is wide open. The moment there's a solution, you can create various scenarios as to, well, how much of that market share are they going to take? Are they going to take 1%, 2%, 3%? And you and I know that if there's a solution to plastic recycling, the market share can be substantial. And analysts that came out with price target for Aduro Clean Technologies between the ranges of $19 and as far as $46 per share, they're only looking at a market share of 1% or less. Now let me ask you this: if you have a solution, if you have a cure for cancer, are you going to only cure 1% of the people and let the other 99% die? That's why these projections that analysts are projecting are way too conservative. But even with their conservativeness, their price target are much higher than what the current stock price is. But that's why I keep saying is that the moment the market wakes up and realizes that this technology will be commercialized, this technology will scale, and this technology is a solution to the problem, none of the revenues are going to matter. This company will have a valuation in the billions of dollars before any sort of revenues justify the valuation. And that's the number one mistake the retail investors are making, is waiting and thinking that revenues have to justify the valuation. They will miss out. And now we see institutions coming in quietly while the retail investors are still sleeping at the wheel. So thank you for watching, and I suggest you take a look at Aduro Clean Technologies with the ticker symbol ADUR, and I see you in the next one.